Welcome to Not Ashamed. I'm your host, Ashley Nordman, and I am back again today with my beautiful guest, Elizabeth Tucker. Yay. Thanks so much for being back.
Yeah, duh.
Okay, so take me back to the situation. So obviously the most horrendous thing in the entire world happens. Your husband gets shot and killed. Mm-hmm. Did he have backup? Like what happened?
So Blake showed up first, and as it's going down with him and the suspect, his partner, Johnny, who originally had the call, shows up as this is happening, sees Blake get shot, hops out of his vehicle, and shoots the suspect, I think 7 or 8 times.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
okay,
immobilizes him.
And he lived?
Yeah.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy? And I see that as part of like the big overall plan. I do believe there was a plan behind everything, like God's plan, but this is just one more thing. Like he got shot 7 or 8 times and Blake was shot once.
Yeah.
You know? So it's just crazy.
So he was like detained right away. Obviously the only suspect because they knew what happened.
Yeah, but he lived. So there was a trial.
Yeah.
2.5 years down the road.
I watched part of it and you shook the news station, like shook them. I'm sure
part?
You know.
My victim impact statement, is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
Yeah.
Where you had tried to write down a million times what you were going to say and then you just spoke from your heart and it ended up being like the most incredible story. Like, share that.
So after he was convicted, he got life in prison with no parole, but I was still able to give my impact statement at his sentencing. And, you know, I did try to put together something I was going to say, but I just never could. I just didn't know what I was going to say. And honestly, I had nothing. I didn't have paper or anything going up there. I prayed about it and I said, God, just lead me in what I'm going to say and help me through it. So I get up there and the judge told me I couldn't directly talk to him. I don't know why she said that, but like I couldn't turn and look at him and say it to him.
So he was in the room, but you had to speak it like towards
I had to tell the judge. Like she's like, just talk to me. And so how I had to word it was, I hope he knows like that. Like I can't
even
say.
Even though he's right there.
Yeah, I couldn't say, Trenton, I hate you. I can't say something like that, you know?
Maybe they're just trying to keep it cordial.
This was a very high profile case in St. Louis.
Yeah.
And I think the judge was just trying to protect the case itself from media outlets and things like that, which is understandable.
Okay.
But I got up there and it just came to me very easily. And I was the last one to speak, so everybody who spoke before had very angry words for him. It was like, I hope you rot in hell. You took my person from me. It's understandable.
People said that, though?
Oh, yeah.
I guess I did not hear those when I was...
No, they were like, I hope you rot in hell. I hope you never have another joyful moment in your life. Like,
so you can literally go out there and say whatever you want?
You can.
Oh my gosh. I guess I just didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I got up there and I had come to such a good place of healing in my journey at that point that I felt like I needed to say this. And I did tell him, I was like, I forgive you. I know Blake has already forgiven you and I know God has forgiven you for this. I do hope that you have a moment with Jesus and that you turn your life around behind those bars and that you can become a better person from this. I just wanted him to know that I forgave him and that I wasn't wishing him to go to hell. I didn't. I don't. I hope that he does turn his life around because then he can go to heaven. He fully repents, you know? And I didn't want him to hear me just cussing him out and telling him I hate him. And when he got up, because he got to speak after all that, he did say, I know y'all have said you hated me, but there was only one person in here that actually was decent, and you all know who it is. That's what he said about me. So I was like, at least he listened to me, you know? So,
I mean, it left an impact.
It did.
He heard from all these people, and the only one he remembered was yours.
I know. I feel like half the people were, oh my gosh, like there was an audible gasp in the room when I said, I forgive you. Yeah, like people
could like a pin drop and everyone can hear it kind of thing. Like it was just like, oh my God.
Like I felt like most people were like, oh my gosh, that's so sweet. She said she forgave him. And then some people were like, you forgive him? Blah, 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 you know? So it was kind of half and half.
And this is not all show. This is who you are.
No, right.
Like you genuinely are this kind of person. You want people to be their best. You want people to, obviously, you want everyone to like find God and go to heaven and like be a good servant, you know? And I feel like at the end of the day, like the right people know that that's just genuinely who you are. You are not doing that for attention. I'm not saying anyone said that about you, but I'm sure
they did.
But I'm sure there's people, because I get that kind of crap too, where people are like, oh, she's just saying that to be like attention seeking. It's like, no, at the end of the day, what good is coming out of this if I mother F that guy on, you know? Like,
and listen, in yourself, like you are not going to find peace unless you let that hate and that bitterness go.
Exactly.
You have to let it go in order to move forward in your healing journey. And I wanted to move forward. I wanted that peace. I wanted that calm and comfort. And you can't do that if you're holding on to that in your heart.
That's what people don't get, is when you are bitter towards people, you're actually holding yourself back.
Right.
Like, it's actually really, really counterproductive to your life.
Right.
Because
forgiveness is for yourself.
Forgiveness is for yourself.
Not about the other person.
No. And people have that twisted. They think forgiveness is like, oh my gosh, you're like letting them off scot-free.
Right.
What are you doing? Like,
right.
Who are you? And it's like, no, I'm letting it go out of my mind and out of my soul and out of my brain. And like, it's no longer taking up any space.
That's forgiveness in general. With anything in your life. It doesn't have to be like a traumatic loss. Just forgiving someone for doing wrong to you is going to excel your journey in yourself and your healing like exponentially. Yeah,
exactly. And I think it takes a lot of maturity to like see it from that perspective.
Yeah.
Did it feel so healing to like say that to him?
Oh, 100%.
Were you able?
So good. I felt like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. I felt free.
Yeah.
It was a feeling of freedom.
Yeah. And I bet you were able to finally like kind of sleep at night knowing like.
I knew justice was served, so he was going to be behind bars the rest of his life. And he was young, so he was 18, so he's going to spend a long time behind bars. Yeah. But I felt like I did what I was called to do, which was to forgive him.
I literally cried when I listened to what you said in the trial, and then what Blake's father said. Oh my gosh, his was like.
I love him so
like
much.
Melted my heart. I was so like, sweet. Not in a good way. I was just like, oh my gosh, this is so sad. Because
Blake is just like his dad,
really?
Too. So like copy and paste. Like their personalities.
They're like teddy bears.
So
then.
Sweet.
Like you could just tell he has like the biggest heart. And I think he said something along the lines of like, justice isn't properly served unless my son comes walking through that door.
Right. Accurate.
And
never gonna get that.
You're never gonna get that, but I can only imagine how that must feel every day, just like wishing they were alive still.
So hard.
I can't even imagine. I read this quote the other day, and it said, the greater the love, the greater the grief. Mm-hmm. And I do feel like that's very true. Like, obviously, when someone impacted your life so much, I feel like that quote is so true, because when people, you know, are obviously so important to you and like that love is so deep, like the pain is just like so much stronger, you know? And I'm sure you feel that way about Blake.
Of course. Whenever you lose a person this close to you, especially a spouse that you have committed your life to spending your life with, and then you lose them, it just like opens a whole new world for you in the fact that it teaches you what's important in life. So when Blake left the night before, I was being such a brat. We were having an argument, and it was about his scheduling and our scheduling or whatever. And I mean, I was 24, immature, and I was being a brat. I was upset about something about the schedule, right? And when he left, he still gave me a kiss. We said goodbye or whatever, but I was irritated at him, and it was obvious, you know? And I was being a brat. And I look back now, and of course that's a regret. Why did I let him leave while I was being such a brat to him? I was being mean, you know, I was being immature. And it's a regret. But I also now have learned in my second marriage to Jacob, I don't let him leave ever on a weird note, on an upset note, anything like that. And I don't care what the fight is over, big, little. He does not leave the house with me upset at him or him upset at me. Because I learned that, you know, because that's not going to happen to me again, because it's one of my biggest regrets is that I let him leave when I was upset at him. And come to find out later that night, he was talking to this little lady that he saw every night when he went to pick up his like lunch at the Schnucks there. And she was saying that he was bragging about me that night, even when I was being a brat. Like he was saying how beautiful I was and how sweet Malachi is. And he just loves being a dad and a husband. You know, of course, I'm like, I'm so awful. You know, I'm such a bad person. And I was being so mean. He was still bragging about me, of course, because he loved me and I loved him. But it just teaches you what's important in life and what is worth being upset about and what's not, because you don't know what's going to happen in the next 10 minutes, you know? So
it's never promised. And I think there's so many lessons that come from what you just said. I mean, not only does this show that when you're married, it doesn't matter if you're having a bad day, a good day, whatever. When you leave that house, you do not say bad things about them. And your husband didn't. You might have had a bad night. You might have gotten a huge fight. But when he saw that little old lady, he's still bragging about you because he loves you endlessly. When you love somebody, you don't go crap talk them in public.
Right.
You know, ever. So that's a huge thing. And then obviously, secondly, you will never leave your children, your husband, your family, anybody ever again on a bad note. Right. And I don't want you to think that you did something wrong.
No,
it wasn't,
it's life.
It is life. And when I was 24, I've done that too.
Yeah.
But I think unfortunately that is just sometimes like how life works out, because it teaches you those really hard lessons, and they are painful and they make you feel really bad sometimes.
Yeah.
But it's the only way you're going to remember, so that next time you never do that again, because you know what that felt like.
Complete mindset change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's huge, because I would hope people wouldn't have to go through something like that in order to now
to learn it.
To now live that way. And maybe your testimony here can help people realize that, like, even though I'm mad at my mom today, I'm still going to tell her I love her and treat her with respect, because anything could happen. She could get in a car accident. She could, anything could happen tomorrow and she could be gone. And I don't want to live with that regret. And so that's huge.
Yep.
So thank you for sharing that.
Hard.
It is hard. When you think back on all of this, like, what really helped you get through it?
Well, I had a really good support system. So I always had family around me or friends, but really praying and my walk with God was like top tier. That was what I needed. Instead of like running away from God, which a lot of people tend to do, I kind of felt like I was running towards him, even though I was very confused. I had a huge confusion mindset. I was like, I don't know why this is happening, God. Why did you allow this to happen? Why me? Why Blake? Why Malachi? You know, it's just a lot of whys. And there's still a lot of whys. I don't think I'll ever really understand on this side of heaven why this happened to my family. Yeah. But I feel like praying and like my daily journaling, my daily Bible reading, and just diving into the word really helped me continue on with making conscious decisions to heal. You know, I wasn't going to allow myself to be stuck in a dark corner of my house crying every single day. Now, I cried every 10 minutes every day for the first year, you know, but then eventually the waves come a little bit farther in between of grief. You start to heal a little bit at a time, but you also have to allow yourself to heal. A lot of people hold on to this bitterness because if they think they're going to let it go, they think they're letting go of their person. I have learned that.
Really?
Yes.
Like if I let go of the pain, that person is now gone from me.
It's like if I'm allowing myself to feel happy again, that's lessening my love for my person. I've talked to so many widows about this exact conversation about if I let it go, if I let that anger go, if I let go of my grief and my sadness, that means I'm loving my person less. And I don't want to do that.
They
feel guilty.
That's interesting.
I have never felt that way. It wasn't part of me. If anything, I love Blake more today than I did yesterday and the day before. And whatever, my love for him has only grown. So it's just a conscious decision to heal and to be joyful again and be happy. And
I think you're honoring him by being happy. He wouldn't want you to not be happy.
No, of course not. We had that conversation too. We definitely had that conversation. What do you want to do if, you know, like, what do you want me to do if you die? And he said vice versa. Yeah. I wanted him to move on, take his time, you know, don't replace me too fast, you know, and he said the same thing. We joked about it, but of course I would have wanted him to be happy and in a healthy relationship again, as long as they were good to my son. That's what counted, you know, and he said the same thing. And that's what I eventually found, thankfully.
I think people probably need to hear that, because sometimes when you go through something traumatizing, it's almost like people don't want to let it go, is what it sounds like, you know? And for whatever reason, being attached to that pain or that incidents or whatever, they feel like they have to stay in pain instead of allowing themselves to be happy again. That's very
Some people allow confusing. It to become their identity.
Yeah, that too.
You know, and I also didn't want it to be my identity. I never
You're not
wanted
a victim person.
I didn't.
You know?
Well, I didn't want to stay the widow forever. Like I didn't want. Oh, there's his widow. No, I wanted them to say, "There's his wife. There's the person who loves him." Like that's what I wanted my identity to be, instead of, "Oh, I feel pity for her," which that was what it was for a while. You know, people pitied me, and now people see me more as, look what she's done with her life after what she's been through. And that's what you said earlier, like you have rebuilt, and I have found joy again. I have remarried. I've had more kids. Like I have decided to keep moving forward in life. It's not really moving on, it's moving forward, because there's no moving on from that situation. It's just, there's no moving on. Blake's a part of me. He always will be. He's going to be a part of my life. We talk about him daily. Malachi knows all about him, knows what happened. So he'll always be in our lives.
And I think you look at it so differently than some people, because I myself, like before we even met and I followed you online and like had seen you sharing bits of your new life and your life with Blake as well, because you are, like you said, remarried, you have more kids now. But when you were with Blake, you know, it was a very different world. And I love how you've brought the two together. Like you keep Blake alive quite literally every day. You talk about him still, you mourn him still, you share memories with him, his anniversary. And there are so many weirdos that like give you hate for that, which I think is disgusting because to me, it's beautiful. Like you're almost like making it less taboo by being like, yes, he's gone and that's really hard. But if we keep him in our life and talk about him because he's a real person who was really here, who is my son's father, who is my husband, like you've just normalized that. And you don't see a lot of people doing that. And I think it's really, really beautiful. Like it has actually really helped me, like with my grandmother who I've lost. I like still talk about her like she's still here because I don't want that memory to go away. Like I want her to feel like she's a part of my life still.
Of course.
And I think if you do it in a healthy way, it can be a positive thing.
Of course. And like there was this one time where I posted a video about Blake or whatever on my Instagram. And most of my Instagram is just like my family or fitness or Jacob, you know. And then I'll post about Blake once in a while still because I always will. And someone commented and they were like, how dare you post about your first husband? Do you not know how disrespectful that is to your current husband? First off, you don't know Jacob.
No.
Jacob is the most laid back, most secure man I've ever met in my life.
Very
He's
secure.
Very secure in our relationship. His personality was meant for this. Yes.
for you and everything that comes with you.
And everything that comes with me. He was made for it. God really made him directly for me. And I just laugh at those comments now because I'm like, you guys aren't sitting here when I'm talking about Blake to Jacob and Jacob's holding my hand as I'm crying, or Jacob says, tell me more about Blake. What was Blake into when he was younger? It's like, it's amazing. It sounds fairy tale, but it kind of is, you know?
Yeah, he is like a fairy tale man. He is incredible. I've met him numerous times. Jacob, you're amazing. We all need Jacobs.
Yeah, we do.
We really do. And I can't remember exactly how he said it, so you can explain it. But I still remember the one time when you had him share like his side of things. And he basically was like, I respect Blake more than anything because without Blake, I wouldn't be here.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean?
He said his thing is, there is no competition between me and Blake.
No.
He's like, I have a piece of your heart, Elizabeth, and Blake has a piece of your heart. And that is true.
It is.
They have their own separate sections of my heart that mesh perfectly together. And he's secure in that. And I'm thankful that he's secure in that because it takes a very secure man to step into this role in my life.
It does, because you're right. Like, that is never going to be taken away. Like, Blake is always going to have a part of your heart. And the right man will respect that and understand that and not shame you.
Right. And that makes me love him more.
Yes.
Like he's being
because
like,
he's meeting you where you are, and he's supportive of the fact that like this isn't like the traditional way of going about it, but this is what works for us.
Exactly. And he has a great relationship with Blake's parents. Blake's parents still come and watch our kids once a week. Like all of our kids, my girls with Jacob and Malachi. So they have a great relationship. They love him. They have from the very first minute. And that has to be so bittersweet for them. You know?
I'm sure.
To like see me and Malachi and continuing on with life, but without Blake, it's got to be so bittersweet. It's bittersweet for me. But they are very supportive and we love them. So
that's a lot for them too, to be like so welcoming.
Special people. It takes very special people.
It really does. Because I could see, even though obviously none of this was planned, like what happened to everybody, it's still a little awkward at times. Like there's a new man in your life now, like raising their grandchildren, you know? So it's just a very interesting dynamic, but it sounds like they go in the best approach about it, because how else are you going to get along? Yeah,
I can't tell you the amount of times that Dick has said to Jacob in front of me how grateful he is for Jacob to be taking care of me and Malachi. And that, like, I'm going to cry, but so sweet and so humbling to hear him say that, because, I mean, that's what you want. You want Blake's parents, who are very much a part of my lives, to be accepting and loving of the new person who is going to help raise their grandson.
I guess this isn't really about forgiveness necessarily, but it's like learning to just meet people where they're at and like not judge anybody.
Right.
That's a huge thing.
Everybody deals with it in their own way. Yeah. Everybody copes differently, deals with grief in their own way. Not necessarily that one person is wrong and the other one is right. They just deal differently, and you kind of have to, like you said, meet them where they're at. Yeah. And I think that's important too, because I mean, you and Jacob got married only a few years after Blake passed, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I'm sure people could have been very judgmental about that. They were.
And I'm sure they were, because people are so freaking nosy. It's unbelievable. But it's like the people in your life that love you just want you happy.
Yes,
that's it.
100%.
There's no right way to grieve. There's no right way to move on. There's no right way to find love again. And I truly do agree with you. Like Jacob was sent from God and he was brought here to like help you through.
Yes.
And that man is incredible. And I just love that you have this like beautiful love story because you deserve it. I mean, you went through the hardest thing any married woman could go through. And like, look at you now. You have a new family that is renewed in many ways and you still carry on Blake's name.
Yeah.
You are so involved in the police world still. You're constantly doing things in honor of him. I mean, we were just at Guns and Hoses in the fall.
Yeah. So fun.
Yeah. There's like so many events that I feel like you're like the poster child of because you're just such a great representation of like the police world is very hard. It has real repercussions when people do dumb things.
Yes.
And it can bring you together and you can get through this and you can grow back better. And now you have an incredible husband and a business helping people reach their fitness goals.
Yeah, young athletes.
Yeah, young athletes.
Yeah, we love it. My life is a testimony to the fact that you can go through traumatic, really hard loss, but there is light at the end of that tunnel. I know that's so cliche, but there is light on the other side, and you can make it over this mountain, and you can make it past all the pain, and there will be happiness and joy again if you allow it to. There can be love again. And happiness, true happiness again, if you just allow it.
It's a choice. And you made that choice and you've made that choice every single day.
Yes.
And the right choice is not always the easy choice.
Right, exactly.
And so I feel like every day you're making the tough decision to move forward and to do everything you can in your power to just navigate this because I'm sure it still comes in waves.
And hopefully help other people do the same.
Yeah.
That's the goal, is to help other people make it through their own grief, no matter what kind of loss it is, or sadness or heartache. Yeah. Hopefully I can help others get to where I'm at now.
You absolutely do too, because I know like subconsciously you've really helped me like re-look at loss like in a new way.
You made me cry.
I'm serious though. Like when I lost my grandmother like a year and a half ago, like I said, like I just literally thought of you right away. And I was like, I'm not going to never say her name again.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like I'm not going to just like pretend this never happened and like just never think about it. Like I'm going to think about it every day. I'm going to read passages that she wrote. I'm going to hang pictures in my house of her. Like
that's healthy. That's healthy.
Yeah. And I honestly don't think I would have done that.
Yeah.
Because I had never seen somebody who had navigated loss so beautifully.
Oh, thanks.
So you really inspire me.
Ditto. Boss babe. So yeah.
I love you, girl.
I love you.
All right. Well, if people want to find you, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
You can find me on Instagram, Elizabeth_Mrs.Tucker. Yay. Or Facebook. I'm on Facebook.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
Are you Elizabeth Tucker on Facebook?
Yes, Elizabeth Tucker Snyder. Yeah.
Well, thanks so much for spending time with me today and talking. Your story's been incredible to hear. And again, you're helping so many people. So I love you.
I appreciate you. Thanks for having me.
Until next time, be loud, be proud, and be shameless.
Visit us at anskinbeauty.com to shop all of our medical grade skincare.